live on your Feel Good Breakfast Show, our first day back, our first time to connect with you and talk about relationship advice. And of course, it's a brand new year, and we know that people love to take the fresh beginning of a new year as really an opportunity to improve oneself through resolutions, but they've also become notorious for largely remaining incomplete, not being able to achieve certain things. Now, of course, it's a brand new year, and today we're asking you, have you ever completed your New Year's resolution quest? Now, online clinical psychologist Asha Dullabh is here today to help us discuss this, and we'll also be taking all of your questions and comments via our Facebook page. Asha, so good to have you with us.
Lovely to be back.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Compliments of the season.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I think just going into this new year, 2022, it feels different to last year, because I remember 2020 and 2021 was like 2020 for me. People was like trying to change things, trying to almost predict what this year was going to be. But this past 2 years has taught us that we can't really talk about or predict what is going to happen, but really be intentional about what you set out with regards to boundaries and your goals for that year. How important is it about setting boundaries and just really being intentional for the year ahead?
Yes. Being intentional is very important, and with that comes having clear vision. And when we are intentional with clarity of vision, we can really tap into the creative capacity of us as a human being. So what's really important with our resolutions, with our intentions, is to firstly really attach emotion to our intentions. Sometimes we miss that part where we just have the intentions, but we don't really feel the emotion. What is it that we're going to feel once we actually reap and reward ourselves with actually manifesting this intention in our life? So it's very beneficial. It's a great time to reflect with complete awareness, a time to really just evaluate what is it that I want to resolve in my life. You know, very often we resolve things that are our inner critics, our inner problems, but also it's time now to look to our outer world as well. So looking at resolutions for ourselves, but also, you know, we're part of a bigger world. So what is it that we want to see in the bigger world, in our planet, in our nation, with our community? So let's look at resolutions for ourselves, but also, you know, the greater, bigger world.
Yeah, and also think about, like, with a resolution, it's really a journey. It's not like I'm going to achieve this now and it's going to be done for, but I think that's what people always struggles with. They set out these goals and sometimes it's unattainable. What are some of those things where you see why people don't achieve their resolutions?
Firstly, I think it's the memory of the possibility of failure, maybe the memory of 2021 of things that maybe perhaps didn't work out the way that we'd like to have worked out, but also I think people are sometimes a bit vague of what they really want to change. So be very clear. Know your why. Why is it that I want to resolve this? Value your intentions. It's very important to really sit back and say, why is this important to me? That attaches the value together with the emotion. Also, you know, some people want to make changes based on what other people think that they need to, you know, to resolve. So really look at yourself and say, what is it that I really, really, really want? It's just not, I want this, but you must really want it. And it must be an experience of excitement and joy. It must be something that you enjoy. We need to actually be smart about our resolutions, and smart meaning let's be specific, it must be measurable, it must be achievable, it must be realistic, and it must be timely. So we need to be very careful how we actually set out, and we need to plan. One great way is to start writing it out. Because when we write it out, we give it more value. It holds more power. And also, you know, don't share it out to the whole wide world. Keep it personal, keep it private, because it holds more value. Obviously, share it with people that you really value, that values your journey, and sort of helps you along your growth process with your intention, with your vision. But vision is very, very important, and the attachment of the emotion.
I remember, I think it's probably like 3 years ago that I stopped having a New Year's resolution because I'd always failed, because I wanted to do this. Like, it would always be with maybe a weight loss challenge. I would want to do everything in a space of like 6 weeks. And by the time it came to the third week, I didn't set out a plan. I wasn't intentional with the way that I did things. And I think that kind of shifted over the years. I remember last year we even spoke about a manifestation box, where you just write down things or put things in a box where it's visual. What other steps is there when you are setting out maybe it can be short-term or long-term for the year that you'd maybe include in guiding people to setting that intention for the year?
I think, as I said, write it out, but also be very very clear, know your why. Ask yourself, what is my why? Why is it that I want that? But find your tribe of support. Sometimes people don't have that supportive tribe, but then let's look at our apps. There are so many apps available that can assist us in resolving our goals, you know, whether it's to lose weight, whether it's to eat healthy, or even our personal well-being. There is so much available. The key thing, Jamie, is for us to move from our compulsive behavior to more conscious behavior, because a lot of our resolutions is usually based on our unconscious behaviors, which is very habitual, and those habits are the things that we really want to change. So we need to embrace change, and when we're looking at resolutions, it's very often sometimes things that we want to avoid, or we want to approach or try and, you know, sort of have more intention to do something new. So it's a wonderful time of the year.
You're the perfect person to bring in for this new year as we set intentions for the rest of the year. But do weigh in on the conversation. Expresso Morning Show and S3 would love to hear from you.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Yes, welcome back, you beautiful souls. It's Monday and we are talking relationships with yourself for 2022. And today we're asking the question, have you ever completed your New Year's resolution quest? I hope the answer is yes, but if not, don't fret, we've got you covered right now. Because with life coach Kirsty Melmed, who is joining us to unpack this topic, so you can weigh in with the conversation, you can come through with your questions and your comments on Facebook, of course, because we love engaging with you, Mzansi, and finding out more about it. And of course, before we get into it, let's say good morning to our esteemed guest. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing really well, thank you.
Good to have you here, because this is literally what I think everybody's plugging into right now. It's about intentional goal setting for 2022. I cannot wait for it. This is something I've got to listen to carefully.
It's also the time of the year that a lot of people's resetting and like trying to just refigure where they are going for this year ahead. But sometimes it's scary, and sometimes people say there's a sentiment that says if it's scary, you should do it. It means it's exciting, it's new. But what if it's too overwhelming and you're intimidated by those resolutions that you set out for yourself? What then?
Yeah, so I think the really important thing to remember is that your brain is wired to protect you no matter what. So if you are setting resolutions and goals and intentions that are too big, they're going to feel scary, and you're probably going to sabotage yourself from actually achieving them. So you really want to make sure that you are being brave to set that big sexy goal, you know, and get out of your comfort zone, but at the same time make sure it's not too different from your current reality. Otherwise, there's a part of you that's going to believe it's not possible. So you want to find that balance between being realistic and dreaming big.
I like that. I like that. The fact that we almost, in a way, kind of preventing ourselves from failure, because a lot of the time we have these ambitious goals and it's like, you've never even tried it at all. You don't know what it's like. You don't know why. And you kind of set yourself up for failure, right? So how then do we set ourselves up for success? How do we make sure that the goals we are setting are actually achievable, and at the same time, while we're trying to achieve it, we are encouraged to do so at the same time?
Yes. So there's two parts to that. The first part is leaning into the emotional component of your goal. So we all set things for ourselves that are going to mean something. They're going to be significant in some way. So when you're having a moment of doubt, or when you're having a moment of sabotage, procrastination, anything like that, it's remembering, why am I working towards this thing? What is the significance? How's this going to change things for me? How's this going to change things for me with other people? You know, and really leaning into the emotion of that and breathing into it. And the other part is the practical sense of, you know, setting those SMART goals, like Asha said before, you know, and making sure that it is achievable for your lifestyle. If you're a single mom of 3 kids and your goal is to go running 3 times a week, is that realistic with your current circumstances?
You run with them.
Exactly. Or do you need to lean on some resources and some support to make that happen? So really take stock and figure it out practically.
Like
I'm actually just thinking of the first time I started my fitness journey, and you actually encouraged this. You were saying, like, don't get on a scale, take pictures every single week, maybe, you know, just like... measurements, write it down, just keep yourself accountable, which only like later on I realized how beneficial that was in my progress, in my journey, looking back and like seeing those numbers, but tracking it down. And I think that's what Asha also said earlier on. It's like, write it down, journal about it, put those thoughts out there. How important is it for us to actually write everything down before we set those intentions for the year?
It's so important. I think they say that people who write down their goals are 75% more likely to achieve them. So it gives you something concrete to look at visually. I think a lot of us are visual people, and so having those pictures like you had is such a great idea because you can really see the progress. And they say as well that it takes, other people will see your progress first, and you're the last person who's going to see it because we're our own worst critics. So having that photographic evidence can really give you that, like, oh wow, actually, I'm looking fabulous, and leaning into how you're feeling as well along the way, because it's not just about that end point, it's about enjoying the journey as you go, step by step.
I like what you mentioned because I can purely relate to that. We are so hypercritical of ourselves, especially when we are going out and setting goals, that if you don't have that information, it's very difficult to see your progress. And at times, I've been through this where you kind of feel despondent because you don't have that good information that you have actually achieved. For me, I think it's more important when you're looking at just anything in life. It's just taking cognizance of it. My question to you is, when is it good to celebrate those little successes? Because yes, we've got those big goals. Yes. Like you said, maybe you do want to run 3 times a week and that's your goal, you're adamant on it. But when do we take cognizance of our achievements and celebrate those little moments? Because I think that's quite important to get us through to that big eventual goal, right?
I absolutely agree. And I would say every single time. Celebrate every single time. Like every time you go out, take a selfie, put it out there and be like, yeah, smash another run. Whatever your goal is.
I like that.
Just be happy and have fun with it, because the more fun you're having, the more momentum you're going to create, and then you're going to get to that end point.
It's like something I saw online. I have to just mention this, but 2022 is the opportunity for us to set new goals. And I saw someone setting a goal of, my first 2 goals for the day were waking up and breathing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm already 2 steps ahead. I love that
Fabulous.
analogy. I love the fact that it aligns, but also celebrating your small victories, which is something I absolutely love. And this conversation, something I'm loving as well. Continuing with it, obviously a little bit later. Thank you so much for coming through with all this information. I look forward to educating us, Mzansi, and everybody else watching. Don't go anywhere. This conversation will have a part 3, and for you to answer and ask any questions on Facebook, come through. We've got the specialist out here.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Yes, it's your Feel Good Breakfast Show, the first one for 2022. It's obviously Monday as well. And today we're asking, have you ever completed your New Year's resolution quest? Well, we're back with both online clinical psychologist Asha Dullabh and life coach Kirsty Melmed to unpack this topic. So do weigh in with your questions and comments on our Facebook page. I think it's so amazing to have 2 phenomenal women to start this year with us, to be intentional for this year ahead. I know we spoke about how overwhelming it can be, but maybe I'll start with you, Asha. What is the purpose of really rethinking the way we do New Year's resolutions, and also just breaking it down into more meaningful and digestible portions?
I think it's very important. I think we're constantly rethinking, reevaluating, and that's an important step for our overall growth and well-being. So, rethinking, reinventing ourselves all the time with complete aspiration, inspiration. We need to be inspired by our resolutions, our goal setting, and that's really important. That's why it's important to rethink and reevaluate all the time. I do it on a daily basis, daily bucket list.
Yeah, what I need to do, get by breakfast, do coffee at 11 o'clock, and just have those small goals for you. But here's the thing with New Year's resolutions, it becomes such a thing where people's like, not another thing that you put out there, because sometimes you just fail, but it's probably the 20th time, maybe the 40th time that people is doing a New Year's resolution, and sometimes they fail. But what is the purpose of saying, you know what, I'm going to get back, I'm going to do it again, and this time I'm going to succeed?
It's so important to be resilient in that way and to keep going no matter how many times you fall down. I think Nelson Mandela actually did that quote about, it doesn't matter how many times you fall down as long as you get up. And if you look at someone like J.K. Rowling, who wrote Harry Potter, she was rejected 12 times from her publishers. Imagine if she'd given up on that first try, we'd be in a world without Harry Potter, which is just crazy. So you have to keep going and realize that you're probably not going to get it on the first try. So it's an impossible expectation anyway. So keep going, keep breathing.
And something you mentioned earlier on, which is also so important in my life, is having that group of people, having that tribe that really pushes you and forces you to have those conversations with yourself. Just how important is it to have a great support system for the year, especially that's like-minded like you, and that really has good intentions for you as well?
Yes, I think the key word there was like-minded. It's very, very important. It maintains that motivation, that intrinsic motivation for you to actually achieve your goals, your resolutions, and it ignites that passion. It keeps that passion, because we need passion to actually resolve all the stuff that we want to resolve, and really be, tap into that creative capacity within us. So it's very important, and we need to do it.
I think one thing I'm also just taking from this is just be kind to yourself. Like, everyone's going through stuff. Just speak positive thoughts to yourself every day when you wake up. Go to the mirror and say, do you know what, Kirsty, today I'm being a good mom. Because you just became a mom as well. But how important is it to just speak positive things to ourselves every single day?
I think realistically, we are our own worst critic, like I said before, and that voice inside our heads can get very loud. And it's very hard to achieve anything when someone's being mean to you all the time. So if that inner voice has that really negative, critical narrative, then we have to consciously choose to engage with kind language and energy-filled language, to be like, I can do this, and actually let me celebrate, like I said, every single win, so that I can build on the momentum of that, and I can feel good, and I can acknowledge that, and just start to change that conversation with myself to be more loving.
Ladies, I think it's safe to say myself and the rest of Mzansi, we are set for the year 2022. Thank you so much for joining us for the first episode of Relationship Talk, but also just giving us advice on how we can navigate our way through this year. We don't know what to expect. It's going to be a crazy year for so many of us, but thank you so much for setting us up and being intentional about this year ahead. So thank you so much.
Thank you.